Gentlemen, welcome to the second October meeting of the Concord Zoning Board of Adjustment. We will follow our usual procedure this evening, which is to say we will take the cases in the order in which they appear on the agenda. We will ask the appellant to come forward, be sworn in and seated in the chairs to my right, and offer whatever testimony they would like us to hear. We do ask that the appellants confine their testimony, if at all possible, to a 10-minute interval. Following that, we will ask the appellant to step down, and we will solicit testimony from anyone in the audience who is in favor of the appeal, and also, from anyone in the audience who is in opposition. We ask that audience members confine their testimony to a 5-minute interval. Following that, we will check in with code enforcement to see if there are any comments from their office, and then if any issues have been raised that seem to bear factual clarification, the appellant will have the opportunity to offer that clarification, not new arguments, prior to our closing the public testimony portion of the hearing. Under most circumstances, the board will act on each individual case before moving on to the next. The first case on our agenda this evening is case 009239 Fayette Street. It's in an RD downtown residential district. It's United Baptist Church of Concord, who are the owners. The applicant wishes to install an electronic messaging center sign. The applicant seeks variances to provision of signs prohibited under this ordinance, and also the provision of signs permitted in residential districts to allow a sign that is 33.25 square feet where 20 square feet is allowed. Is there anyone here representing the Baptist Church? Please come forward. Do we have a sign-in sheet?
Yep, it's right at the...
If you would be so good as to sign in on the sign-in sheet. Good evening. Gentlemen, do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but?
Yes. Yes.
Would you identify yourselves for the record as you testify, please?
My name is Joshua Messenger. I'm with Advantage Signs.
Kevin Twombly from Restoration Foursquare Church. And I get just a point of clarification. You've got United Baptist Church listed. They are currently the owners. Restoration Foursquare Church, that's the church that I pastor. We meet in the same location. By the end of this month, we will become the owners of the property, and that's where we're putting the variance through for.
Very good. If you would fill us in on why you feel a variance is appropriate in this case.
So as stated in the application, we have 4 churches that meet on the site, and it becomes very confusing on a Sunday what church, what time. It would allow to convey different messages. There's other groups that meet throughout the week and throughout the month, and it is in a residential zone. However, it's really on the edge of the residential zone, and where the sign would be located, it would be single-sided, and it wouldn't face any of the residential areas. Another point that we'd like to make is that we would only be using the sign for text-based. We wouldn't be doing graphics or motion or video or any motion to the sign. And I think there's a need for this. There's been some other studies, and there's actually been a couple that have been approved in Concord that have gone through with a variance, but it's something that is obviously there's a hardship that they need this due to the four churches that are meeting there.
we're in a unique situation where within the square footage of the building itself, there are 4 different congregations that meet each Sunday, starting at 8:30 in the morning. With the first service, there are 2 services that take place at 11 o'clock, and then another service at 2 o'clock, all 4 separate congregations using the same building, which we see as a benefit because we're not having multiple congregations buying facilities around the city that are removing properties from the tax roster. So it's like we're all on one property utilizing the building. But the hardship that is incurred is oftentimes people are coming looking for the church service that they're planning to attend, but when they see the sign stating one location or one church name, it can be confusing to a visitor when they come for the first time, or even for different events that take place, funerals, weddings, when it's listed as one congregation and not the other. So we wanted to be able to highlight which service takes place at which time on Sundays, and that's really when the rotation of the digital signage would take place, is on Sundays. 8:30 a.m. is one service, 2 at 11, and then 1 at 2 p.m. And so we would change the signage based on when the service times are applicable.
Questions from the board? Any questions?
May I?
Yes, please.
So it says in your presentation here that there are also functions there during the week in the evenings?
Yes, yeah. We host several different groups using the facility, different nonprofits, different community resource groups, AA, NA. There's a couple leadership groups that meet through that week. There's different prayer events that take place. So yeah, in the evenings we would like to highlight the different organizations that are meeting, should they desire to be highlighted.
And what happens to the sign when there's nothing going on there? When there's not on a Sunday, not an evening where there are other functions going on, what happens to the sign?
We would propose that it just stays static with either a scripture verse or an encouraging message, enjoy the day, have a good day. On the mock-up of the signage that I believe you have, love God, love people, serve the city. That's the mission of our church.
How many times a day would the sign change?
On a Sunday, that's when the sign would change.
At least 4 times.
4 times. Other than that, during the week, for the most part, it would stay static. Other than if there's
whatever your message you have
Yeah,
would stay there until there was an event to.
correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So, what you're asking for is 2 things tonight, right? You've described the issues around electronic signage, but you're also asking for a larger sign. Could you create something, walk us through a little bit more about why you need a sign that's larger than what's allowed?
20 square feet?
Yeah, so right now there's 20 square feet allowable, and we're at 33 and a quarter square feet. One of the reasons for that is the message center comes in a standard 6 by 2, so that's 12 square feet. But then we needed to have a proportionate header panel to fit within the sign, and that adds about 42 to the top by 72. And Kevin and I were discussing earlier on the phone that there's a lot of dead space in that square footage, so it is 33 square feet as calculated by the city. However, that's to the peak of the triangle. It doesn't doesn't deduct the white space that's on either side of the top. So if that was deducted, it would be under 30 square feet. And what's currently there on site is about 25 square feet, because it's been grandfathered in, but we're proposing to change that.
All set?
I am.
Nick, did you have any questions? Is there anything else you'd like us to know? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone here who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Please come forward.
Hello,
Hello. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but?
I do.
May we, would you sign in on the sheet there, and would you also identify yourselves for the record as you testify?
Sure. My name is Sandy Dustin, and I live across the street on number 18 South Street. I don't want that large sign across the street from my house. I don't want any electric sign across the street from our house. That area is a problem because there are so many distracted drivers anyway. There are always accidents there. There was a gentleman that was hit and killed a couple of weeks ago right in that area while he was trying to cross the street. I don't want a large electronic sign there.
Very good. Did you have some comments, sir?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to say that the neighborhood.
Could we get your name, please?
Yes, I'm sorry, Chris O'Connor. I'm Sandy's husband. I live in, across the street as well. The neighborhood has a very low-key, wonderful feel, and I don't think that having a large electric sign would be in keeping with the feeling of the neighborhood. I'm not sure how the sign is not going to face residential area. I realize there's a park across from the church, and probably which way the sign will be facing, but it's still, even if it's not entirely garish, it's an addition that I think would not benefit the feeling of the neighborhood.
Very good, thank you. That's it?
All right, that's it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
We are hearing a murmuring sound coming from somewhere in the room, which is a little bit distracting and has been fairly consistent. If you need to have a chat prior to visiting with us, that's great, but please do it outside of the room so that we can proceed undistracted. We're very easily distracted, being as we are a little bit ADHD up here. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in opposition to this appeal? Please come forward. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but.
Yes.
Very good. If you would also sign in there, that would be helpful, and identify yourselves as you testify.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Mann.
Jocelyn Mann?
Jasmine
Jasmine Mann,
Mann,
yes.
to be known as Jasmine Rivera in a couple of weeks. My husband and I live on South Spring Street, which is in a butter of South Street, and I want to echo the previous attendees in our opposition of the sign. We frequently take walks around our residential neighborhood, which is a very quiet neighborhood. We have 4 teenagers, and we just definitely feel that it would not match the vibe of the neighborhood that's happening. It would be extremely distracting for people walking around, as well as South Street is extremely busy, and we definitely want to keep the feeling of the residential neighborhood and not the feeling of the districts that are moving more towards a commercial district, which we feel the signage would
Very good.
enforce.
I agree. I think an electronic signage is inappropriate.
Could
for
we
the
have your name,
neighborhood.
sir?
Oh, sorry, Anthony Rivera.
I apologize for interrupting. Proceed.
No problem. Yeah, I agree that the electronic signage would be inappropriate for the neighborhood. It's unnecessary. And I think the current signage guidelines are more than adequate for what they need. I didn't hear any compelling arguments to sway me the other way.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in opposition? I do have some letters here. One is from Stephen Totter, who is a property owner in the area, although his business is in West Babylon, New York, and he is in favor of the appeal. I have an email here from Lisa from Suzanne Isabel, excuse me, who lives at 18 Thompson Street and is concerned about the awkward traffic intersection and the youth groups meeting in the area, using the park, crossing the street, feels an electronic sign in a mostly residential neighborhood is not appropriate, that the size seems excessive, and that it would be distracting. In other words, she's opposed to the appeal. And we have a letter from Tracy Hutton, to Tracy Hutton, from Laura Miller. Tracy is not writing letters to herself. Who is with the Friends Program, who is an abutter at 30 Thompson Street and is supportive of the appeal. Does not give any particular rationale for that. Any comments from code enforcement, Dr. Hutton?
I just want to note the letter from Carlos that was sent to the board in 2021. I had included it in your packet because it was on point. I wasn't sure how many members remembered that, so just for your information, just to bring your attention to that.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Messenger, Pastor Twombly, do you want to offer any factual clarification in response to anything you've heard? Yep, come on back up so you'll be on tape.
Just passing along some photos of the site where the sign is and where the sign faces to the intersection there. The digital signage, I know there's concern about it being a large digital sign. It's 6 feet by 2 feet. So 12 square feet total would be the digital signage. We would ensure that the sign would be turned off at a certain time at night, so that it would not be illuminating through the evening beyond the hours of probably 9 o'clock, 9:30. That would typically be when any event that would be taking place in the evening at the church would be coming to a close.
Any questions from the board? Thank you, gentlemen.
The real point behind the digital signage is so that we have the ability to communicate to the community about the 4 different congregations that are meeting. If we went with just the standard signage that we could put in place that cites Restoration Foursquare Church as the occupants, the owners of the facility, we do a disservice to the other congregations that are using the space. And so that's really the heart behind why we want to have digital signage, is so we have the ability to communicate without a letterboard that would have to be changed several times in the course of a day to be able to communicate out to the public about the services that are taking place. There's lots of good that takes place in the facility, and we're just trying to highlight how we are trying to serve the community as a whole. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have a request for 2 variances for a sign, one to make it a little larger than is allowed in the neighborhood, and another to have an electronic sign that is changeable, which is also prohibited throughout the city, so far as I know. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So let's start this one with Mr. Evans.
Thank you. I don't have much to say about the size of the sign. I think if we're gonna permit a slight increase in the size of the sign, I think there may be some justification for that, although I'm not sure they made a case for it. But the electronic, I don't think there's enough here for us to buck the trend and allow an electronic sign because of the avenue that leads down, I think, is what we're concerned about. And I don't think there's enough that's been presented. I understand the argument, but they want to let people know what's going on there, but there are other ways to do that. And I don't think that this is enough to justify allowing the electronic sign.
Ms. Spector-Morgan.
I agree. I think the hardship that's been alleged stems not from the property, but from the owner's use of the property. I think that this would alter the essential character of the neighborhood, both the size and the electronic messaging, and therefore it would be contrary to the spirit and the public interest. If the purpose is to communicate times, they have a sign with changeable text that can be changed in between services and for the meetings during the week. They also have a sign that currently exceeds the permitted square footage. If they took the peak off the proposed sign, they'd be, by my calculations, about 24 square feet, and I'd be okay with approving that, but I'm not okay with approving what they proposed either in size or in electronics.
Mr. Monahan.
I don't have much to add, although I think maybe my board members can remind me, did we draw some distinction between a mechanical sign and a electronic sign in a recent case before us?
Did we draw a distinction?
Was there something that came forward with a mechanical sign that changed? Yeah.
Yes.
It's not what
It
they're
was a gas,
proposing.
it was a gas station up in Boston that allowed us to change the price mechanically with a tape.
Oh, up on the,
Built-in tape
up on the
system.
circle.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, our job to come up with alternatives for them, but I think there's just too much working against this, given the ordinance, the public safety issues, the impact on the quiet nature of the neighborhood, that I am not supportive.
I agree with what Jim said, and I'm certainly fine with the second variance request. I think the larger sign, due to the configuration, the way it's designed, I'm persuaded that that's okay also. And that's another way for them to get the multiple messages out, is with a little bit larger sign.
I agree with my colleagues. I don't think, the city ordinance is very clear. It's been litigated all the way up to the state Supreme Court as to the electronic sign. And we'd need an extraordinary reason to go against that, and I don't see it here. As to the question of the size of the sign, there might be an argument to be made, but we don't have the ultimate design of the sign, assuming they do not go forward with the electronic version of it. So at this point, I would be unlikely to support a motion to increase the size of the sign, because I don't really have appropriate exhibits to convince me that it's necessary. It's conceivable that another application coming back without the electronics and a totally different sign design would be, in my mind, a materially different appeal, at which point I'd be willing to consider it. But at this point, I'm inclined to deny both variances. Would the board like to take the variances up separately? Anyone? Or we take them up?
I'll move denial of both.
All right, it's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to deny both variances for the reason given in the discussion. Tracy, do you think you have enough information to
Yes, you were very clear, thank you.
record this? Everyone in favor, is there any discussion on the motion? Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variances are denied. And that brings us to the next case on our agenda, which is case 0095, 53 Joffrey Street, which is in an RD downtown residential district. Meredith and Alicia Brasaw, owners. The applicant wishes to construct an 8 by 12-foot shed 48 feet from the front property line where 50 feet is required. The applicant seeks a variance to Article 28.532, accessory buildings and facilities.
Yeah.
You both swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but? Very good. Would you sign in the usual fashion and then give us your names as you testify for the
So
record?
I'm Alita Brisa. I know.
Alita,
There's a lot of vowels in it. yeah.
I apologize
No,
for
it's okay.
mangling it.
My parents kind of set me off on a challenge with that one.
Yeah,
Tracy, thank you. You've
I
been
couldn't
very
spell
kind.
my own name for
Yeah.
several years in the early going. It was tough.
All right, thank you for having me this evening. This is a new experience for me. So we made a mistake and were gifted a shed and we put it on our property, not realizing that there were variances and RSAs, and we've been in the city for a couple years, but it's new for us. And we want to move it, but we have a really unique piece of property in that the yard is fenced in, the backyard, and that's both awesome and has conflicts. And then the whole right side of our property is on Bow not River. Help me out here, Merrick.
Bowbrook?
Bowbrook, thank you, on the ravine, so it's a slanted piece of property. So we put the shed on the edge of the property, which we realized we couldn't do. So I want to move it in, so it's the correct 5 feet from the edge of the property, but because of the fence, I can't get any further back than 48 feet. So I'm just asking for that 2-foot variance so that we can have our shed and all of our children's stuff, because everybody knows there's lots of stuff, and keep it.
So you're gonna like flip it?
Yep, that's exactly what we're gonna do, and move it in, so it's closer to our garage.
Okay.
Exactly. And it is almost exactly 48 feet from the edge of the street to the front of the shed, if we put it right up against the fence.
Okay.
So the shed we see in the photograph with
Yep.
the 2 windows in it
Yep.
is where that's where it is now?
It is where it is now, yep, and, I'm sorry.
Okay, and you wanted, by flip it, you mean turn it 90 degrees?
Mhm.
Okay.
And honestly, I might have done it by now, but if I have to completely take my fence apart and move it, I wanted to see what we could do before we got there. So, and its proximity on that side of the property is really nice because it's close to our garage as well, so the kids can get their bikes in there really easily. And then I know you can't really see, but on the right side of the property, as soon as it hits the edge of the house, it's just downhill because it goes down into that ravine.
In the back too?
The back, yep, all the way to the road behind us, and then it's fenced, but yeah, that would be challenging. We wouldn't be able to get a truck back up the hill to get into the back.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the board?
Did I hear you say you want us to condition this so the children have to put their own bikes
Oh,
away?
God. If you could do that for me. Yeah, we're lucky if they come home with them, so. Yep, there's
There
one
we
of them.
Well, we've already heard from someone who's
Yep.
opposed.
Yeah. What's on the other side of the fence? Is
What's
it-
on,
is
in
there
the
a-
backyard?
Yeah, is there a pool? You just kind of want the privacy for?
No, it came with the fence, honestly.
All right.
I don't know that we would have one otherwise.
Okay.
It is really nice, given bears in the neighborhood, and one of our kids is really still small.
Say-
We have a temporary pool we put up in the summertime, but it's not there all the time.
Did you say bears in the neighborhood?
Bears,
Okay.
bears in the neighborhood.
Mr. Walter, did you have any questions?
I do not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You bet. Anything else you'd like us to know?
No, I don't think so.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, could we get your name, please?
Kevin Desmond.
What would you like us to know?
Okay, the problem I have is she agrees the shed is right on the property line.
Are you in a butter speaking in opposition?
I'm the one, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
I'm the one that lives right next
I
door to
know,
her.
it's not your
you,
turn.
you shouldn't be here.
I
We'll
shouldn't
call you up
be
in a
here.
moment.
No, you should have waited to be called, but are you all set?
I'm all set.
Okay, thank you, if you'd step down. Yes, Mr. Desmond?
You guys sent me the letter to be here today.
Now, I'm not telling you you shouldn't be in the room, I'm telling you you should have listened carefully to the chairman's sermon before the meeting. We call up the people to comment pro and con after the appellant steps down.
All right,
But you're here, and you're con, so let's hear what you have to say.
okay. The problem I have is they made the spot for the shed without a permit. They had the shed delivered and they showed up. It is right on the property line, okay? I don't know if they know it or not, but 29 Hague, right before they moved in, they had to reline their sewer. Their shed is sitting right on top of that sewer line. I don't know if you people know that or not, but it is.
You realize they're proposing to move the shed?
She said 5 feet, which they had all summer to do it, and they didn't even attempt it.
Well, that's because they need a variance to do it. But you do understand the shed would not be where it is now if we were to grant?
Okay, the other problem I have is I see, my shed is in back of the house, okay? And she just said there's no way they can put the shed out back, which is a complete false. They put up a new fence this summer. It's a Home Depot fence. It takes 3 screws to undo it. If they wanted to put the shed out back, they could. All they need to do is take down 2 panels, which they know it, and they could have it brought out back. Whether it could be the company that brought the shed to begin with, or I was talking to the guy from the codes department, and he says if they need, we will move it for them, except we would have to, the town would have to charge them. He says, but we could do it. So I would like you guys to look at these pictures here, and you'll see what I mean, and I'd appreciate it. There's probably 4 or 5 of them. But to move that fence would take all of 15 minutes. All they need to do is take down 2 panels and have the shed brought out back, and it could go right next to my shed. Their backyard is huge. They have more than enough room for it. The part I don't like is if whatever they store in that shed, and if the shed ever caught fire, my house is going with it. And I don't know if you guys remember Monarch Drive. A few years ago, a guy had a shed next to his house. The shed blew up, set his house on fire, and set the neighbor's house on fire. You might remember that. You're the building inspector, right?
Not anymore.
Oh, well, you were. So, that shed is, I didn't measure it, but I'll say no more than 20 feet away from my house. And I'm not very comfortable with that. And like I said, it's also an eyesore sitting out in front of the house anyway. My house is sitting right there. I don't want a shed sitting right next to it. Especially when I know how much land they have on back of their house. Their whole backyard is huge.
Very good. Thank you.
Those pictures should show you what I'm talking about as far as the fence goes.
We can
It's
see.
a Home Depot fence, 3 screws, it's out.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do you keep those, or do I?
Yes, if you want to submit them for the record, we need to keep them.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it who hasn't been heard? Any comments from code enforcement?
Nothing additional at this time.
Very good. Ms. Brayshaw, would you like to offer any factual clarification in response to anything you've heard?
So it's not quite as simple as just moving 2 fence panels. We'd have to remove the posts too. And yes, we did replace part of the fence 2 years ago. And we have a huge piece of property. I was not denying that. It's really just about its location. It's fantastic. We do not use any gas-powered, anything besides our vehicles. We use all electric everything, so there will be nothing explosive in that shed at any time. There will not be any electricity to that shed. So, I mean, I know I can't guarantee that it won't, something might not happen, but we use all electric-powered appliances, from our chainsaw to our lawnmower to everything that we use.
And
Any
it's going to
questions?
comply with the side setback, right?
Yes, absolutely, and it's really very beautiful. It matches my house perfectly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have a request to place a shed 2 feet closer to the front property line than would be permitted by the ordinance due to its proximity to the side property line. We heard testimony that the land is steeply sloped and that a permanent fence would have to be removed in order to move the shed back 2 more feet. I'm going to start this one with Mr. Walner.
Thank you. Well, she's already in compliance with the side setback. She's already testified to that. Really, do we really want to require somebody to move a fence back 2 feet and a shed back 2 feet to be in compliance? And I think that's, that would be contrary to the public interest, and certainly not going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood by doing that, by moving it back 2 feet. I think substantial justice would be done if we permitted this, and I don't think it's going to
No,
No, you
you're
may
done,
not.
sir.
And I don't think it's going to affect the value of surrounding properties. And I think the hardship is that it is an unusual lot. That's it.
Very good. Mr. Monahan?
I have nothing to add. I think Nick captured my feelings.
I agree with Nick.
I would just say that, 2 feet is not going to change the proximity to the neighbor's house. So any risks that would be to a shed in its correct location is not going to be any more than the risk in the proposed location.
I agree with,
I'd be in favor.
With that?
Sorry, I'd be in favor of granting.
okay, I agree with my colleagues for the reasons that they gave. Is there anyone who would care to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance is granted. That brings us to our next case this evening, which is 0097, 295 Loudon Road, GWP Gateway Performance District, NRFC Concord Holdings LLC. The applicant wishes to place 4 8.5 by 40-foot storage containers, and they seek variances to allowable principal and accessory uses in zoning districts to allow accessory use B7 outside storage of materials and inventory in a gateway performance district, and outside storage of materials and inventory, that's the provision, to permit outside storage 20 feet from the side property line where 25 feet is required. Gentlemen, you swear to tell the truth and nothing but it? Would you sign in on the sign-in sheet, please, and introduce yourselves for the record?
Chris Netto with Nobis Group.
Ray DeMonte, Causa, Pellerin and Associates.
What would you like us to know?
I'm in. Good evening, everybody. Of course, Chris Carley is with me, and you know the nature of the request, so I won't go into it unless you want me to express greater detail, other than to say we're asking for variance to have 4 storage containers on the property. There's a history behind this. At one point, several years ago, Dick's had 14 storage trailers on the north and west sides of its building. We worked with Mr. Creveling at that time, and starting on the north side, reduced the number of containers on that side to 8. We continued and reduced it on the west side down to 6. And during that process and continuing, Dick's has been working on trying to create more storage inside its building, because if you've been in their store, they don't have a lot of big things. They do have, the little boats and so forth, but mostly it's small items. And they needed to create space in the store. They did that so that we could remove the first 8 containers, but it's been tougher to find space in the store. We finally done that and reduced it to 4, which was, I think, consistent with what we had discussed with the city. There are, site-wise, there's a solid row of planted trees along Old Loudon Road, which generally excludes neighbor view to the property. There's also solid woods between, on the west side, between Dick's and Aldi's. Much of Dick's storage, as I said, is small to medium size. It's not something that they could put outside like Home Depot does. A pair of gloves can be stolen pretty quickly, and a lot of the other things. It is also necessary to protect the inventory, small items, up to, something maybe the length of this table or less, and to protect that inventory. Dick's has, for neighbor purposes, has prohibited access to those containers before 8 a.m. and after 7 p.m. So, and that's for noise purposes.
Excuse me, sir, could you repeat those hours again?
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat those hours again?
Yes, before 8 a.m. and after 7 p.m.
That's what you're telling us.
That's enough chit-chat from the audience. You'll have a chance to testify later.
Okay.
Thank you.
I couldn't quite hear him, that was.
I understand.
Okay,
Fair enough.
I'll try to speak louder. And I misread my notes. It's before 7 a.m. and after 8 p.m.
Mr. Demonte, maybe if you move the mic a little closer, then folks will be able to hear you a little better. Thanks.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay. Again, just for clarification, before 7 a.m. and after 8 p.m. I have also visited other locations in this zone relative to commercial uses and container use. I don't know if the board has seen these or not, but today, for example, Walmart has over 50 containers on its on the back of its building on Loudon Road, across the street, same zone. And closer to Christmas, it can have more than 100 containers, all of which I presume are all permitted. And Home Depot, as you probably know, has inventory behind its building. A lot of that is much larger than what Dick's would have, and I guess easier, harder to steal. So there's a couple examples of what has happened in the zone. We think that part of the process of getting here, going from the 14 containers down to 4, was finding room in the building. And Dick's had spent a considerable amount of time over the intervening years to alter things in their buildings so that they could put more inventory in the storage areas and the workspaces. That's the primary reason for the reduction. I would ask Chris Neto if he has anything to add.
Yeah, really the location was really the best locations for the 4 storage trailers, where we're occupying the 2 furthest to the west are within existing parking spaces, and then the 2 that are on the south side of the building are right adjacent to the loading dock. You see how the building bumps out in the back there? That's the loading dock for the building. So it's really key for them to have storage space, particularly for their seasonal equipment, like the kayaks, where they have to order a lot of inventory and they need a place to store them, even in the off season when people aren't purchasing kayaks in the middle of winter. So
There are no containers out there now?
there are 4 containers out there right now. Yes.
Okay, so that was why the notice of, I'm not sure what the exact title of it was.
Notice of violation.
Notice of violation, that's why that was issued.
That's right.
Okay. Very good. Questions from the board? Yes, please.
Can you help me understand the hardship for either request? Why does it have to be in the side setback, and what about the property necessitates the outside storage?
Well, I think, first of all, it's the size of the items that we're trying to preserve and keep ready for retail sale. We don't have enough room in the building itself to accomplish this. It is a commercial zone, and among other things, several times in their recent history, this I found beyond belief, Michael's has been #1 in the country in the sale of kayaks. Pretty incredible statement. They nonetheless have worked to get from the 14 to the 4. We need to have a certain amount of inventory to keep the, to be responsive to the public demand. And other stores are doing that too. As I said, before I came over here, I went over to Walmart again. I counted over 50 containers. Similar motivation, I'm sure, and that is, and I'm sure theirs are permitted, but they've got demand and they try to meet that demand. Dick's has completely changed the interior of their building. It's taken a lot of money and a lot of time to accomplish that, so that most of their inventory is now inside. But it's permitted under those circumstances, as noted in the zone nearby, Walmart, Home Depot, 2 examples. And I think it's consistent with the commercial zone.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, I think the hardship on the setback is that we're occupying existing parking that's there. There's a very significant buffer behind the building to all these. It's basically a heavily vegetated buffer. I don't think it'll affect the character of the neighborhood at all. We're keeping as close to Loudon Road as possible with these containers, and only impinging on the buffer or the setback by 5 feet.
Is that teeny tiny little corner?
It is,
Is that all it
yeah.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me add another thing. When we were instrumental in developing that general area of Loudon Road, when I say we,
I know.
my sons. And along Loudon Road, most of the trees, with the site work, most of the trees were removed. Those trees have been replanted. There have been, and we've gone back and looked at that site, and where there's been gaps, we've planted additional trees, so that from the north side of Old Loudon Road, there isn't a view. From the south side of Loudon, from the Dick side, you don't see the other side. The trees do help buffer noise, but I think the noise constraints or the access constraints also help control noise for the neighbors. When you've got 2 of them right close to Loudon Road, as close as we can get them, and the other 2 kind of nestled in trees towards Aldi's, that's a pretty conservative location on the site.
Thank you.
What would be the reason you couldn't move the storage trailer that's on the edge of the parking lot toward Old Loudon Road and slide it back within the setback?
You know, we'd be sliding closer to the residential butters, to the north, if I understand what you're saying.
I think you do.
We're trying to keep it as far to the south, away from the residential butters as possible.
I see.
And yes, we could slide it to the north and be out of the setback, but it would be closer to the residential butter.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, as a response to that question, I'd like to give you that sketch. You notice nobody signed that and took credit because I prepared it. I prepared it in 2018, and that gives you an idea of what was on the site at that time. There should be enough for everybody, I hope.
Oh, okay.
They're all the same.
You know how I feel, Ray, about practicing architecture without a license.
Well, that's why there's no scale.
There's no north arrow.
But I am an engineer, as you might
Yes, I do recall that, yeah.
So, you know, that may be a loophole. I'm not sure. But if you look at the whole Loudon Road, and that north side of the building, you'll notice there were 8 storage containers there. Two aspects of that. It was closer to Old Loudon Road, and to the extent there was noise, while those were in that place, if somebody was going in at any time during the day, it was noisier than having them tucked up towards Loudon Road, where we're putting 2, and over by Aldi's, where we're putting 2 now. So, basically, when you look at this sketch, the 13, 14, and 11, and 12 are where the proposed containers are on Nobis's plan. But that was the reason for staying away from Old Loudon Road, consideration for the neighbors. They had complained before we started this trek of moving everything. And I think they were right with regard to the ones that are on Old Loudon Road between 1 and 8. And they were also right because some of the employees were out there before the hours. So we've imposed those hours in response to comments from the neighbors. So I hope that answers the question.
Any other questions from the board? Nick, anything? Jim?
So you envision that these 4 storage containers will be there permanently?
Yes, at this point.
And I'm not trying to be flip with my question, but why don't you just make the building bigger to accommodate the inventory needs of the business?
That's an...
In the first place.
Well, first of all, let me go to in the first place. They didn't know they were
I
going
don't-
to have...
You're out of order, sir.
just-
Please
Yes,
don't
okay.
speak from the
Yeah.
audience without having been
Okay.
called on.
Okay. They had no idea they were going to have this much demand in the Concord store. We exceed many other locations. And yes, going from 14 down to 4 is a very significant change. They still have a significant demand, and that's wonderful for the Concord region. We want to take advantage of that, but we're doing it responsibly, removing, 8, 9, 10 of the trailers, and with the time constraints. And then let me just say, as I said, I just came back from Walmart. I've been over there. We took on this case in 2018. I've been over there 40 times since. In the summer and up to now, they have 50 trailers.
Yeah, I think we did cover that ground.
Yeah?
I'll just add, yes, they could add onto the building to make up the space. I think, what we've all experienced in the past 4 or 5 years with the lack of ability to get inventory that you need, shipped to the stores is part of the reason for more of a temporary structure. Hopefully they don't need them forever, but, right now, it takes longer lead times to order stuff. They need to stock up on inventory and get more inventory so they can service their customers better. So that's the reason they're leaning more towards a temporary structure.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice seeing you again.
Nice to see you, too. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition?
I would have to say so.
Well, please come forward then.
Sir.
Now is your chance.
Brian Vasilian, Concord, New Hampshire.
Swear to tell the
64
truth and
years,
nothing but the
Spring
truth.
Street.
Would you sign in, please?
Sure. I've been living up on the heights behind Dick's before they even came in. I have a picture here of the property, and I'm not giving it to you if you ain't giving it back. The picture of the property across the street from my house before they came. Houses. house here, house here, house here, house over there. And now with all these, house gone there, house gone there, house gone there, house gone there, house gone there. And now with a new project right next door, the Godzillas, you're gonna build over on the other side of the pond, house gone there. Now, it used to be a neighborhood. I'm the only one left. And the only one left over there across from Dick's. And I put up with more than you can ever imagine, okay? From the first 2 years of construction.
Can you tell
okay,
us,
the dust and the
excuse
dirt
me,
and the
can you tell us what the placement of these storage containers, what problem that would cause for you, what interference that would have in your life?
the hardship. I'm getting to that, okay?
Would you
I wanna
get to it
tell
right
you-
away?
I want to tell you what goes on.
No, we-
and
we-
what-
we-
no,
all
what
we-
the hardships that I have
All
every
we
day
can
with them.
deal with is this
The
specific
hardships
question.
I have every day with them. Okay, well, first of all, I'll contradict. He said, first he says 8 o'clock in the morning, and then he changed it to 7 o'clock, okay, right in front of you, okay? Now, Home Depot don't allow trucks to come, no deliveries at night, okay? And over here, I got the truck comes at nighttime, parks out there, leaves the truck running all night long. I gotta shut my windows in the summer. The lights that they put up there in the parking lot, right at the house, I have to get new curtains, new shades. It's 24-hour daylight at my house. I'm just going through some of the stuff, okay? In the wintertime, the guy got a new plow, he got a new plow truck, okay? They got the kind now where you don't push the button to let it down, push the button to let it up, push the button to let it down, bang, on the ground, all night long, all winter long, bang! And then he pulls the gear, started beep, 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 beep.
Mr.
bang!
Vasilian,
This
they
all
would
night
still
long.
plow the driveway whether these
No,
containers
no,
are
I
there or
know that,
not.
but I'm just telling you what I put up with them up all night. I gotta sleep.
I think
work
we
hard,
understand
okay?
what you
I
put
need to
up with.
sleep.
And
I'll
right
get to the
now, I'm getting
containers.
a little
I'll get to
tired
the
of putting up
containers.
with you, sir.
I will get to the containers.
All right, let's do it.
okay? All right? You don't wanna know how many times I've had to call the cops with these cars beeping out there all day long, beep, beep, beep. 7 o'clock in the morning, the guy going like this with the blower like that, and hits the car bumper. Beep, 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 beep. for an
Your
hour.
5 minutes
I
is
listen.
going to be up very shortly.
Hey, listen, well, I haven't even done 4 minutes yet.
Yeah, you
I
have.
get 10.
No, you
okay?
get 5.
I get 5, how come
That's
everybody
right.
else gets 10?
Everyone else does not get
Change your
10.
mind for me?
I wish I could, but
Listen,
that's not what
okay.
I've done.
The tractor trailer comes from around the back of the building, comes and parks across the street from my house, checks his truck every morning, vibrates in my house, bouncing off that wall, vibrates in my house, okay? Now, when he comes around the corner, they used to have these things out here, okay? They were out there. You had 6 of them out there. I had to have them get them out of there. After 5 years, I couldn't take it anymore, okay? And I'll tell you why. But then all of a sudden, they get a new manager. A year later, he don't know no better. Here come the containers back again. So now I gotta go. I've been through Craig Walker, I've been through Ernie, I've been through Tracy, I've been through Gwen, and now I'm through Dave Hall, okay? And I had to call David. I said, Dave, look. He said, well, I'll have to check into it. I don't know nothing about it. I says, okay, fine. Well, sure enough, they had to get him out of there. Twice they put him in there. I let him do it for a long time. I couldn't stand it no more. Listen, the tractor trailers come, and they got them kayaks. They got them kayaks. Them things are stacked up inside the back of that truck all the way to the end, because they've already unloaded the other stuff. They're in plastic bags, okay? One at a time. Boom, ba boom, boom, boom. Boom, ba boom, boom, boom. Boom, ba boom.
Your time is up, sir.
Now, wait a minute.
Please
They're
sit
off-
down,
they
sir.
lead off the truck here. Now they're going to ground.
None of the testimony that you give us after this will be considered part of the
Boom,
record.
boom, boom, boom on the ground. I ain't done yet, 30 of them. Now
Please
they gotta
sit
put 'em
down.
inside the storage containers.
Please
Boom, boom,
sit
boom,
down.
boom. I'm not out of control.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Please sit
I meant to tell
down.
you beforehand that, you'll see, I'm a good actor. I'm not out of control, okay? I'm a little upset. But then you go, boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? I gotta tell you what goes on. That's what I'm here for.
Please sit down.
Sure.
No, down in the audience. Your testimony is finished, sir.
No, on the storage containers. I've been through enough. I lose enough sleep. I work hard. I've lost enough sleep because of these guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in opposition to this appeal?
And that's only a quarter of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments from code enforcement?
Only that I would say in the process of working with Dick's, they do have some off-site storage that they're utilizing, just so that you're aware that on-site isn't the only storage they have. And in terms of the other, as you know, the other sites in the city are in our enforcement of those matters is irrelevant to this case. So, the only two things I would add.
Try me, I lost the thread of that.
So the two things are, the other sites were irrelevant, obviously, because they have no impact on this case. And they
Oh,
have,
okay, yes.
they have
okay.
off-site storage as well that they're utilizing, so take that for what it is.
Very good, okay. Mr. DeMonte, Mr. Neto, would you like to offer any factual clarification in response to what you've heard?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, with that, we'll declare
6 o'clock in the morning that they're doing.
that's enough.
Okay? 6 o'clock in the morning. I forgot to tell you the.
That's
I
enough.
didn't get a chance to tell you what I want to tell you. The dumpster guy comes at 6 o'clock in the morning. Boom, boom.
Your
boom.
testimony is done. Please sit down.
Put up with enough. I'm going to poker night in my house. I've put up with enough. I've put up with enough. 20 years I've been there, and I've put up with enough.
Poker night.
Well, that's the most excitement we've had since I've been here.
Fruit was flowing.
So you know, Chris, you have a button underneath your desk.
Do I? Does it do anything?
Goes to the police station.
Tracy just called. It's okay.
Okay, well, I think the problem has sorted itself out.
I do too.
That brings us to the deliberation portion of this particular case. I believe the public testimony portion is closed. I will start this one with Ms. Spector Morgan. How do you see the argument for variances here?
I don't see the argument for variances here. I hear what you're saying. I appreciate the efforts that have been made to come into compliance, but I don't see the hardship for either variance. With regard to the setback variance, you can move it so that it's further out of the setback. I appreciate that might cause other problems, but the setback problem would be solved. And with regard to the outdoor storage, that arises from the owners and the success of their store, which is fabulous, but it doesn't arise from the land. So I am not inclined to grant either variance.
Very good. Mr. Monahan, how do you see it?
Yeah, Laura stole my thunder, so I agree with her. I think that, you know, the permanent nature of the request really was suggested there should be a more permanent solution than a temporary storage.
Very good. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I had conflicts between the use of the word temporary and permanent. They're asking for permanent, but then they're calling it temporary until they build the building bigger, or, you know, what are the other options that are out there? So
Very
I
good.
didn't see the hardship.
Mr. Wallner?
No hardship for me.
No hardship? No. All right. I'm inclined to agree with my colleagues. It could be that the ordinance could bear a little examination because outdoor storage is permitted here, but buildings are not, and storage containers are considered buildings. There may be some way to deal with, and I think there are situations where there's outdoor storage of inventory where it's secured within enclosures and so forth. So there may be ways to deal with that, but I don't think, as the ordinance is written, we can find in favor of this appeal. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I will make a motion, and Dr. Hutton, since you were out of the room, I will reiterate, if that would be helpful. I would move to deny both variances on the basis that there is no unnecessary hardship that arises from the land. With regard to the setback variance, those containers can admittedly be moved out of the setback, and while that may cause other problems with abutters, it would solve the setback problem. With regard to the use variance, the hardship that's alleged arises from the needs of the owner and the success of the store, which is wonderful, but it doesn't arise from the land, which you need to have hardship for a variance.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variances are denied. And that brings us to our next case this evening, which is case 0098, 42 Washington Street, RD Downtown Residential District. Wendell Butt Funeral Home LLC is the owner, and the applicant wishes to use the property for mixed-use development. The applicant seeks variances to allowable principal and accessory uses in zoning districts to allow use A16, conversion of a non-residential building for one or more dwelling units, and allowable principal and accessory uses in zoning districts to allow use H1, sales of goods and merchandise, within an establishment occupying up to 5,000 square feet of gross floor area with no outside storage or inventory. Good night, Ray. Tracy, before we start on this, I've got a question.
Yeah.
Am I misreading the code? It looks to me like A16 is allowed in this zone by right.
I think it was, I just gotta double check what I was thinking.
You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Very good. Would you sign in on the,
We have.
very good. When we get to testimony, I'll ask you to give us your
It was
names.
the combination of the two that makes it not allowed.
You
So-
can't have a mixed use.
It doesn't allow mixed use in this district.
Okay, so
Sorry, I had to refresh my memory.
it's not actually the A16
It's the
use.
combination of the two uses.
So they could convert it if they didn't want to put a cigar store in there into a
Correct.
house without a variance.
Correct.
And they could put a cigar store in there if they didn't want to put a residential unit.
Correct.
Okay.
Would a store
Because it's an
be,
existing business use, so you can convert from one business use to another. It's when you combine them to make a mixed use that they're not allowed, but the only way to cite that, it's not very straightforward how to cite that.
That's okay. We get it now.
Thank you.
very good. Would you identify yourselves as you testify, please?
Jay Robertson. And thank you for your service and your sacrifices. The property in question was once a grand home built in 1890 by a Masonic brother, John Whitaker. He was a distinguished resident of the Pentecote Concord community. He built the house with his wife Frances for his livery and delivery business, and he thrived there for 40 years. The residence was known for its shrubbery and its lawn and its flower gardens. For 30 of the last 32 years, the residence or the property served as the William J. Butt Funeral Home, another commercial property. And in the last 2 years, it was rezoned residential downtown. Since that time, it's been unoccupied and it is suffering. The grandeur is dilapidating right before us. It's a deteriorating public nuisance from both nature and man. The sign on the sidewalk, his glass is completely broken out of it. The front entry porch is weathered, worn, and weary, and it's no longer welcoming warmly visitors to the doorways. The house looks sad instead of celebrating vitality. The chimney is leaning leeward from the nature's erosive winds, so one of the chimneys is threatening to fall. The barn door was yanked off its hinges by delinquents just for kicks, exposing the interior 130-year-old wood to the abrasive elements of nature. The solid granite foundation in the barn twisted 10-inch beams like toothpicks and is in desperate need of repair before that building does collapse. We had Erickson Foundation come out and do an estimate on that. They actually missed the 10-inch beams twisted. And I'm a trained police officer for 18 years in Texas. I missed it the first 4 or 5 times I went in there. But the last guy that we had doing the actual inspection of the property, he saw it. But it's pretty significant. And it's gonna take a lot of work to get that done. The basement window has a broken pane of glass. The horsehair plaster in the upstairs servant's bathroom, since it's been unoccupied, they didn't know that the roof was leaking, and it has completely dissolved probably about 15, 20 square feet of plaster from the lath. And they actually just had to replace the roof to stop the leaking. They didn't know where the leaking was coming from. But there's significant weathering and moisture rotting of the wood underneath that in the lath.
let's see here, what else we got? So, the back of the residence has 2 doors where they would bring in customers, if you will. And the juveniles broke in through those 2 doors, and it has since invited black mold to just completely take over most of the basement. It's grown up about 4 foot, about 4 foot on the walls in all one of the basement compartments, and it's crawled into the hallway, into the back basement. There's even some in the ceiling of the first floor from where the flooding came in from the roof.
I think we get the picture.
Yeah, it's sad to see such a beautiful home like that.
Could you give us some thoughts on why you believe a variance is appropriate in this case?
Because we see the need in the Concord community for a premium cigar retail shop. Penny has owned Cigar Shenanigans in North Conway and Littleton for the last 7 years. She and I recently got married. We're running Littleton right now. Her reputation is beyond rebuke in the cigar industry. She's known all up and down the Northeast coast. We know that one of the local cigar shops is about to close down, and so we see the need to fulfill that. 65% of her customers travel from southern New Hampshire, Mass, Concord, to come up and purvey at her shop. So that's the purpose of what we would take and convert that space, and then also live in the residence and contribute to the community.
Is there something peculiar about the property that would justify a variance that creates a hardship?
The fact that it's currently zoned residential downtown prevents us from doing both.
Right, which is why you're here, but that isn't a hardship in and of itself. You mentioned the configuration of the house, you mentioned its age and its size on the property. We need to know something about the property and the building that creates a hardship that would justify excusing you from complying with the zoning in this case. I don't make the rules, but that's what we do.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? Maybe it'll help me understand
Absolutely.
both what Chris has said. So, we went to great length to say it's going to be pretty expensive to
Absolutely.
rehab this, and that you likely will need to combine a residential activity and commercial activity
Yes,
to
sir.
justify the economic investment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's $170,000 just looking at replacing the knob and tubing and the foundation.
How many square feet is the building?
It's over 9,400 square feet, 5,400 usable.
And how, in the, do you mind, Chris? I'm
ahead.
sorry. The property around, how much is there, I think you suggested that there's some historic nature to the property. It had gardens and things like that. Did you
Yes,
hope
sir.
to restore those? And
It was built in 1890 by Mr. Whitaker and his wife, and I understood that he dismantled, or had the Bosco and Masonic Lodge dismantled and relocated in Concord and rebuilt in Concord. So I have that connection with him. I see, looking at the architecture of the home, the thought processes that went into designing something that was ahead of its time. I mean, it is just an absolutely stunning piece of property to look at.
May
are
I?
you worried somebody else might come along and just knock it down, do something else? with it?
Possibly.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
May I, Penny Robertson? One of the things about the cigar community is that it tends to be folks of a certain stature who have a desire for a certain standard of living. And while it's not for everyone, you know, frankly, I have spent many years with guys who just want to sit around and drink scotch and be left alone. And I think that this home embodies what they would be looking for, you know, the elegance and the you know, the historic just beauty that it has. And when I first saw it, actually, ironically, that it was a funeral home. This home has actually haunted me for 8 months. I saw it come up in the listings, and I said, nope, that's no. And it just kept reappearing in our searches and because I knew that we wanted to build a new cigar lounge in Concord. and this one just kept reappearing, and I think that it's a perfect fit to put together, you know, the folks who smoke cigars, the folks who want that kind of livelihood, and they also want a place where they can gather in peace and not in a bar or in a, you know, just some kind of noisy place. I think it's actually the perfect setting, if you will, if, you know, considering that these are the characters and this is the setting, and it all just kind of came together all at once. And to keep the elegance of the mansion, our goal is to build the actual retail shop in the barn itself. So we would outfit it with a 20 by 20 humidor, and we would have that lined with Spanish cedar, which I have a friend who owns a mill, thankfully, so I don't have to pay retail. And set up a cigar lounge, no alcohol served, but a place for folks who want to sit and just have a cigar, leaving the mansion to the folks who are perhaps a higher stature or have
Choose to partake.
yeah, who we're very much into the privacy of someone who wants to just sit and relax and not be bothered by other folks. And I think that the idea of this property allows us to do both, give the casual cigar smoker a place to shop, sit and have a cigar, and then also to sit and relax.
And a place to live.
And then, so we don't live in a box.
Would you be living upstairs?
We
Yes,
would,
ma'am.
and that would also give us the opportunity to keep an eye on the property itself.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything else you'd like us to know?
I think the only other two pieces that I missed as far as the damages that are going on is that the inspector noticed that there were about 22 bullet holes in the backside of the property coming from the school side, and no telling how old they were. And then
How long has the building been unoccupied?
2 years.
Okay. So has it been on the market that whole time?
It's been on the market for over 150 days. It's been shown over 30 times.
Okay. Thank you.
And then there were some drug paraphernalia. I'm a retired police officer from Texas. Our partner, he's also a retired police officer. We saw drug paraphernalia and other juvenile things that go on in a clubhouse back next to the chain link fence next to the school.
I just want to, we would like to, I mean, I would just love to save this property from, you know.
Yeah.
I think we get the message.
Thank you, sorry.
Thank you very much. That's it?
Yes, sir. That was it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Please come forward. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but.
I do.
Would you sign in, please?
Is there a pen?
Is there no pen?
There was a pen.
Somebody else stole your pen. But you had it.
For the price of admission, I think the city will supply a pen.
Hi, Scott Landry, Concord. Having been a resident of this area, having lived actually owned two separate properties down Washington Street from the property, I can attest that that area, even on unfortunate times when there's been high-profile funerals being held there, there's been a lot of crowds down there. However, it's been quiet, kind of relatively quiet, living down in that area. If you understand what I'm talking about, the Wendell J. Butts right on Washington Street, right across from the old fire station that's right there. And it's almost right behind it's the VFW. However, this property is, and having known the owner, the hopefully new owner, Penny for over 6 years, I've known Jay for about a year now. I can attest to the way she runs the property. She is very cognizant. She actually rebuilt a dilapidated restaurant in North Conway, which was an old barbecue place. It was pretty nasty, and she ended up refitting the entire place, making it a very nice property, very quiet. That we've had many of people visit that area and go into that shop. I've been to that shop numerous times. and I've known her before the even opened. So I just want to attest that the owners are straightforward, and they would do wonders for that area. The property itself needs to be saved, really does. It's unfortunate because I remember being there 20 years ago, and even though it's kind of like a sad place to be, it was always a nice place to see on Washington Street as I was heading home. So
Very
I
good.
just wanted to make sure we save it.
Thank you very much.
Do you, I should have asked, I'm going to ask you a question because you seem to know the neighborhood. I should have asked you before. When it was a funeral home, do we know if the funeral director lived in, was there a
I
residence?
believe, reading the property itself, there was an upstairs apartment that was the owner was living there. So I'm not sure if it was actually zoned at that point or if that even covered under previous.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Because I believe the owners, in fact, my son was saying he went to school with one of the owners' son or grand at the time, and they lived there for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard in favor? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition? Any comments from code enforcement?
Nope.
All right, with that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing.
I think you have a letter.
Oh, that's right, I do. I do have a letter. Thank you for pointing that out. This is an email which is from Fred Regan, who is the Director of Operations and Maintenance at the Merrimack Valley School District. They oppose the project because of the possibility of alcohol either being served or patrons being able to bring their own alcohol because of location being next door to the Learning Center and the CSI Charter School. We think there is a potential for negative impact for our students and for the students of the charter school. Since there has been that comment, Mr. Robertson, if you or Ms. Robertson would like to offer factual clarification in response to that, you're welcome to do so.
So in the two stores that I've previously owned in my lounges, one of them actually does serve alcohol, and I'm actually well known to the Liquor Commission, not for bad reasons, but because I'm militant about service to anybody and everybody. We check IDs for every single person, and the service age for both tobacco and alcohol is 21. It was changed in 2019. So I personally make sure that every single person who comes in is of age. That school, unfortunately, also actually, what is the age range for the kids?
17 to 22.
17 to 22. There is that gray area where there are, in fact, of age people who go to that school. The I don't want to say joy, but our alcohol service is only going to be in the house itself, in the mansion itself, not in the barn with the tobacco sales. So the only people who could get in there would be members or people who have been vetted. So
It's a membership?
Yes,
it would
ma'am.
be a membership,
Inside the
yes.
house, yes, ma'am.
Inside the house. The retail store is for everyone.
Yeah, anybody 21 or over.
But I am very hyper cautious because I know that it's my head on a stick but also I don't think I could live with myself if someone were hurt. So I actually have been well known to call the police on people who have left my establishment promising that they wouldn't drive and have, given me the finger, gotten in a car and driven away. I'm the one who calls the police and lets them know that that's happened. So.
And her reputation is above reproach in the industry. The law says anybody under the age of 35, we have to card, so we card everyone. If we don't know you, we're going to card you. And the answer to, is anyone drunk in your place of business? The answer is no, because we don't overserve. And so it's an issue of her reputation to Marines who are also former police or retired police officers that take the law very seriously. And we will not break the law for anyone.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy, in the event that this were just the cigar business, zoning would permit them to get a liquor license there?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the zoning and the liquor license are separate.
I understand, but
Yeah.
the implied use with of the liquor license, serving liquor would be, that use would be allowed. Okay. With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing really closed and discuss the case. We have a request for two variances, one for allowing a mixed use of a cigar store and lounge, as well as a single-family residence in an existing building. We heard testimony that the building is extraordinary and in need of loving care, and that it has been on the market for some time without any interest. We also have heard testimony that both uses independently are permitted in this zone. I'm going to start this one over here with Mr. Wallner. What do you think, Nick?
Well, when you look at the criteria, it seems that it certainly would be, it would change the essential character of the building, but for the better. I think it would increase property values probably in the area, and I think certainly substantial justice would be done. In terms of the hardship, it certainly is a rare case to see this kind of a combination. I'm sort of persuaded by the fact that if nothing is done to this building, it's certainly going to affect the character of the neighborhood. And I think this is certainly one solution that seems to be somewhat viable.
Mr. Monahan.
I agree with Nick. I think from what we learned, it would appear that in the history of this building, it was a mixed use of commercial and residential. I think that creates for me a hardship that they're trying to accommodate what the building was probably designed for. So I think it meets the test of hardship, and I agree with Nick that it improves the character of the neighborhood. I don't think it's inconsistent with what's on Washington Street anyway, so I'm inclined to support.
Ms. Spector Morgan.
For me, it's a really close call on the hardship, but I think given the historic nature of the building, the unique size of the building, and the unique property, I can find my way to hardship, and I would be inclined to grant the variance, particularly where both you.
Mr. Evans.
I agree with everybody.
Me too. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Is it moved and seconded? Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variances are granted. Do we have any other business before us?
Just, you have the minutes and
Minutes.
the findings for September 13th.
Moved on both.
Move to approve both. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
Abstain.
opposed?
Hey,
Why are you naying?
He abstained.
Abstaining.
Oh, abstaining.
did I mutter that?
I thought you were naying, like Seabiscuit over there. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. We're done.